Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are at the next topic, that is the practical Rook Endgames, and we have got an example from game of two great players. White is Levenfish and black is Botvinnik. White is pawn up and he is trying to convert the position. Conversion looks bit tricky, but white uses fine technique and precise calculation to win the game pretty quickly. The main challenge that white is facing, his rook is ahead of the pawn. The rook needs to come behind the pawn or to the side of the pawn. And the right situation is king should protect the pawn and rook should try to guard or shield the checks from the opponent's rook. Here white first started with the move rook b6, first forcing the black king behind, and we will see that the location of rook on the 6th rank plays a very important role in the outcome of the game. What should white do here? White wants to push his pawn and improve the position, but black rook will start giving checks, and as soon as the king goes towards the pawn, f4 pawn would be lost and there will be race of pawns in the Rook Endgame. So it is somewhat similar in character to the previous position, but here the technique is totally different. White goes with the move b4, rook e1 check, kd4. White can also play kd5. After rook f1, now white will have to abandon this pawn. But before giving up the pawn, white will improve his king placing. King goes to e5, rook e1 check. Now the point is, if the king simply slides to the 5th rank, white will be one tempo short to the actual position. So white goes kd6. The king is heading towards the c7 square, and now white has decided to give up the f pawn. There comes rook e4. Now we see that forcibly the f pawn will be lost. And what is the calculation that white has made here? Do note that after rook e6, kc7, the rook was getting supported and the white pawn would have queen first. b5. So now the pawn is protected on b5 from the rook's attack. Rook takes f4, and it looks like this position might be drawn. But white uses a simple tactical idea, rook c6. A brilliant move in many sense. One, the rook wants to keep the king cut on the 6th rank. And second, white is all set to push his pawn quickly. After the move g5 or the move king f6, we will see that, especially after king f6, we will see that king can go to c5 with a check. So basically the king's inability to come on f6 cost the game. Rook has to come to b4, white goes b6. Now again tactical point, kf6 allows king c5 check and the rook is lost. g5, kc7, and a very important position has come where we should note that whenever king and pawn are trying to fight it out against the rook, if the rook manages to cut off the king on the 3rd rank, the black king is on the 2nd rank now. Rook has managed to cut it off on the 3rd rank. Now what will happen? Even if the pawn reaches g2, we will simply be able to come rook c1, g1 and take g2. Sometimes pawn is on g3, we can just attack rook c3, g2, rook g3, and the pawn is lost. After g4, b7, g3, b8 queen, rook b8, kb8, and we again see king is unable to come to the protection of his pawn. If the king wastes the move, then rook c3, g2, rook g3, and if g2, then rook has all the time to come to c1, g1 and take on the g2 pawn. So the point is, the king is way far away from the pawn. Usually if it is more than the distance of 2 squares from the pawn, the king will not be able to protect the pawn. So from f5 the king could have come to f4, but from f6 it is 3 lines or 3 squares away, so it cannot support the pawn. In this case it's too far and the pawn is lost. Botvinnik resigned way before in the actual game. I hope you will find these lessons useful and instructive. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.